The night had fully settled in as I entered the hospital's surgery room, a silence only broken by the beeps of monitors and the whisper of my own footsteps. The clock on the wall struck exactly midnight as I prepared for one of the most critical and delicate interventions of my career, correcting a complex cardiac anomaly in a newborn. The baby, just hours old, was already facing a colossal challenge for survival. I donned the surgical cap and mask, looking through the fogged lenses of my protective glasses at the team that was already in place. Each of us knew the weight of the task ahead. The nurse handed me the scalpel with steady hands, but her eyes betrayed the tension of the moment. "Let's do our best," I murmured, more to myself than to the others, as the first incision was made, precise and calculated. 4 hours, the outside world disappeared. It was just me, the instruments, the fragile heart beating under my hands, and the constant hum of the oximeter. Decisions were made in fractions of a second. Each movement could be the difference between life and death. At the end of the surgery, with dawn already showing on the horizon, the tension dissolved with the news that the procedure had been a success. "Stable and good color," announced the anesthetist, allowing for the first time that long night, my heart to also permit itself a sigh of relief. But that relief was short-lived. The reality of what awaited me outside those walls soon weighed on me again. The drive home was made in an almost automatic state, my mind too exhausted to celebrate the victory at the hospital. Upon arriving, I found the house quiet, except for the faint light streaming from beneath the door of the bedroom where Marcos, my husband, waited awake. Marcos was sitting on the edge of the bed, hands covering his face, clearly frustrated and tired of our mismatched routines. When he looked up at my entrance, his eyes carried not just sleepiness but a deep sadness. "Another night at the hospital, Larissa? When will this end?" His voice was a mix of resignation and reproof. I stopped, leaning against the doorframe, still in my lab coat. "I'm trying to save lives, Marcos." "That can't wait," I replied, the words coming out colder than I intended. He stood up, approaching with slow steps. "And our life, Larissa? When will you save our marriage?" Those words struck me harder than any surgical complication could. I don't know," I admitted, feeling the helplessness invade my space, the weight of each decision I had made up to that point. Marcos ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration I knew all too well. "I need you too, Larissa. Not just your patience." I wanted to say something to ease the pain I saw in his eyes, wanted to promise that things would change, but the words escaped me. Instead, I approached, trying for an embrace that he hesitated to accept. "Let's find a balance, I promise," I whispered, even without being sure how I'd fulfill that promise. He finally yielded to the embrace, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "I hope so, because I don't know how much longer I can live like this." We stayed there, embraced, on the threshold between exhaustion and hope, as the morning settled outside, promising a new day we didn't know how we'd face. And while Marcos finally fell asleep, my mind already anticipated the next challenge, a morning on the street that would further change the direction of my life. The dawn's light had barely touched the wet city streets when I left the house, my heart still heavy from the conversation with Marcos. The promise to find a balance between my professional and personal life echoed in my mind, but the solution seemed as distant as the horizon line. Heading to the hospital for another day of challenges, my journey was interrupted by a figure huddled under the awning of a closed shop. It was Camila, a presence already known in the neighborhood, always seen wandering the streets, but never in such a desolate state. Her condition was deplorable. Her torn and dirty clothes clung to her thin skin, and her face was marked by suffering and prolonged exposure to the night's cold. I stopped the car, my medical conscience overcoming the hurry. I hurriedly got out and approached her, who looked up with difficulty, her eyes meeting mine. There was a glimmer of recognition, but more predominant was the despair that seemed to consume her. "Camila, are you okay?" I asked, crouching to be on her level, my voice filled with concern. She tried to smile, a tremulous gesture that didn't reach her eyes. "Dr. Larissa, Her voice failed, broken by hoarseness and the cold. "You need help," I said, my tone softened, as I reached out to touch her arm, feeling the coldness of her skin. She flinched slightly, a defense instinct born from countless uncertain nights on the streets. "I have nowhere to go," she murmured, covering her face with her dirty hands, her fingers trembling. "Look at me, Camila. You don't have to live like this. Let's find a place for you, a shelter where you can recover," I insisted, trying to break through the barrier of resignation she had built around herself. She shook her head, a tear escaping through her fingers. "Not in the shelters. They're not safe for someone like me. They don't understand." "Then come with me now. Let's go to the hospital. We can help you, give you treatment, a warm meal, a place to rest safely," I offered, my voice firm with a promise. Camila looked up again, her eyes measuring the sincerity in my expression. "Why do you care so much?" Her voice was a whisper, laden with years of mistrust. "Because it's the right thing to do. And because I believe that no one should be alone in this situation," I replied, helping her to stand carefully. With slow steps, guided by my firm hand on her shoulder, Camila accompanied me to the car. Each step, every movement of hers was a testimony to the nights spent outdoors, the struggles faced by those forgotten by the cracks of society. As we reached the hospital, the sliding doors opened for us, a symbol of a possible new beginning. As I helped her enter, I thought of Marcos and our conversation. Here I was, trying to balance the scales of my life again, helping someone in need, while my own personal world dangerously leaned towards collapse. "Dr. Larissa," Camila called, bringing me back to the moment. "Thank you for not just passing by. I'm just doing my job, Camila." "And a little more," I said, smiling at her as we headed to the emergency department, ready to face whatever this new day brought. The moment the hospital doors closed behind Camila and me, I felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. Guiding Camila to the triage area, memories of my conversation with Marcos intermingled with my determination to do something meaningful for her. Each step was a reminder of the balance I was trying to maintain between my personal and professional life. As I placed Camila on a stretcher, her eyes met mine, filled with a mix of gratitude and fear. While she was examined by the nursing team, I headed to my office for a quick consultation with Emily. The door was ajar, and she was seated, reviewing patient files, but her gaze lifted as she heard me enter. "Emily, I need a favor," I began, closing the door behind me. "It's about the patient I just brought in." Emily set down the papers, her expression immediately alert. "Yes, I saw her. What's going on, Larissa?" I took a deep breath, organizing my thoughts. "I want to operate on her. There's a condition I'm sure we can improve with surgery." Emily frowned, clearly concerned. "Larissa, have you seen her file? She's a street patient, no insurance. How are you going to justify this to the administration?" "I know," I agreed, feeling the pressure build. "But something about her story. She was thrown out into the streets with no support. She deserves a chance to regain her health." "Are you sure about this, Larissa?" Emily asked, her voice full of hesitation. "It's a big responsibility, and the administrative risks are huge." "I need to do this, Emily. It's more than a medical decision, it's humanitarian," I affirmed, feeling a conviction that surprised even myself. Emily watched me for a long moment, measuring the determination in my gaze. Finally, she sighed and nodded. "Okay, I support you. But let's do this right. I'll help prepare the case so it goes through administration without issues." "Thank you, Emily," I said with palpable relief, knowing that having her expertise and support was invaluable. Leaving Emily's office, I returned to Camila, who was now being comfortably accommodated in a temporary room. Her expression was one of confusion and fear, mixed with a spark of hope. "Camila," I began, sitting beside her bed, "I've decided that we will proceed with a surgery that could significantly improve your quality of life. I know it sounds scary, but I will be with you every step of the way." She looked up at me, tears welling in her eyes. "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because everyone deserves a second chance, Camila. And I believe in you," I replied, holding her hand gently. She squeezed my hand in response, a fragile gesture of trust that strengthened my resolve. I knew I was on the right path, no matter the challenges we would face together. The hospital corridor was peacefully silent as I stepped out of the operating room, the adrenaline from the surgery beginning to ebb, replaced by a deep sense of relief and satisfaction. Camila had withstood the procedure well, and the team was optimistic about her recovery. With the first rays of the morning coloring the hospital windows, I sat beside her bed in the recovery unit, watching her slowly awaken from the anesthesia. Her first moments of consciousness were confused, her eyes wandering unfocused before settling on me. She blinked several times, trying to orient herself, and then her words came in a hoarse whisper, "The old house. I need to go back there." My interest was immediately piqued. "Camila, what house is that? Why is it important?" I asked, curious and ready to learn more about the past she rarely mentioned. She looked at me with a mix of hesitation and need. "It's the house where I grew up. Since I was kicked out, I've never been back. But I need to find something I left behind." The idea of a journey in search of the truth about Camila intrigued me deeply. Who knew what we could discover together? "When you feel stronger, we'll go there. I'll help you find what you need," I promised, imagining that this gesture could help close a painful chapter of her life. "Thank you, doctor," she said, a tear trickling down her cheek. "I don't know how to thank you for all you're doing for me." "No need to thank me, Camila. I'm here to help," I responded, offering a reassuring smile. In the following days, as Camila recovered, we organized the trip to the old house. She told me more about her childhood and the events that led to her life on the streets. Each fragment of her story added a layer of complexity to the woman I was helping to rebuild her life. Finally, the day of our trip arrived. Camila, though still fragile, showed a resilience I deeply admired. I rented a car and drove us to the address she had provided. It was a long drive out of the city, passing through landscapes that gradually transformed from urban to rural. As we neared, Camila's nervousness was palpable. "I'm scared," she admitted, looking out the window at the trees flashing by. "I don't know what we'll find there." "Whatever it is, we'll face it together," I assured, my voice firm, trying to convey confidence I hoped would be contagious. The house, when it finally appeared at the end of an old dirt road, was a dilapidated structure, its windows broken and paint peeling after years of neglect. The garden was wild and unkempt, but there was a strange beauty in the desolation. We got out of the car and Camila took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the facade as if trying to read the faded walls for chapters of her own story. "Let's go," she finally said, a new determination in her voice as she headed to the front door. I followed her, ready to uncover the secrets that the old house held, unaware that the next moments would reveal truths that would forever change our understanding of Camila's past. As we approached the entrance of the house, the air carried a mix of abandonment and forgotten secrets. The door creaked under our touch, swinging open to reveal an interior covered in dust and cobwebs, appearing as if it had not seen life for many years. The floor was littered with leaves and debris brought in by the wind, and the once elegant wallpaper was now faded and peeling. Camila hesitated on the threshold, her gaze sweeping over the entry hall. "So many memories," she murmured, more to herself than to me, as she took her first hesitant step inside. Her footsteps echoed in the silence, as if each sound disturbed the ghosts of the past that still dwelled there. I followed her, watching as she touched the dust-covered furniture, each touch seeming to reignite a memory. "My father used to read the newspaper in that armchair," she pointed out with a sad smile, her hand passing over the rough surface of the fabric. As we explored further, Camila led me to a small room that, according to her, was where she spent most of her time. "It was my sanctuary," she said, opening an old desk that seemed to have been forgotten by time. Inside, we found a carved wooden box, covered in a thick layer of dust. With trembling hands, Camila opened the box. Inside, there was a stack of yellowed letters and photographs that depicted a family I could barely recognize as hers. "My grandparents," she explained, running her fingers over the images with reverence. "They were very wealthy, owners of extensive lands, until family disputes tore everything apart." She pulled a letter from the top of the stack, unfolding it carefully to reveal elegant handwriting, now faded by time. "My father wrote this to me, just before everything changed." She began to read aloud, and the words were a testament to love and hope, but also warnings about the dangers of greed and pride. He knew something bad was about to happen, Camilla said, her voice choked with emotion. He wanted me to flee with my mother, but she didn't want to believe that our own family could turn against us. Setting the letter aside, she encountered more photographs, each bringing forth stories of happier days and, eventually, the onset of a tragic downfall. With each item unearthed, a part of Camilla's history was pieced together like a complex puzzle, revealing not just lost wealth but also the deep wounds left by family betrayals. I had forgotten what we were like before everything was lost, she sighed, closing the box with a final, definitive sound. I think part of me wanted to forget, to not have to face the pain again. Camilla, you're stronger than you think, I encouraged her, placing an arm around her shoulders. Confronting the past can be painful, but it can also be the path to healing. She nodded, wiping away a tear that had escaped. Maybe it's time to face it, for real. Not just for me, but for my father and everything he wanted for me. As we left the room, the weight of the revelations left us contemplative but determined to learn more and, perhaps, find a path to redemption. However, we were about to discover that the revelations of the day were just the beginning, and the next chapter of our journey would reveal even more secrets hidden in the shadows of that old house. The afternoon was giving way to twilight when we heard the sound of hurried footsteps approaching down the long gravel driveway. Camilla and I were in the garden, still digesting the discoveries in the old house, when Anna, Camilla's stepdaughter, abruptly appeared on the scene. Her face was loaded with a complex mix of defiance and despair, and she did not hesitate upon seeing Camilla, advancing like a storm ready to burst. Camilla, what do you think you are doing here? Anna fired off the question with thinly veiled aggression, her eyes sparking with fierce intensity. Camilla, catching her breath, replied with a calm that surprised even me. Anna, I just came to seek some answers, and perhaps close a chapter that I left open a long time ago. Answers. Closing a chapter. Anna laughed bitterly, a sound that echoed strangely among the surrounding trees. You think you can just show up after all these years and make claims? It was then that I intervened, sensing the mounting tension that could escalate into something more volatile. Anna, we need to understand what happened here. There are things about this house and your family that Camilla never knew. Anna hesitated, her defensive posture wavering slightly as she stared at me. And what do you know about my family, doctor? Her voice was a sharp whisper, laden with unspoken suspicions. I decided to be direct, Camilla's words about the past echoing in my mind. We know about the letters, Anna, and the photos. We know that Camilla was unjustly expelled from this house after her father's death.
Anaès face pâlée, surprise momentarily replacing Angers.
She swallowed hard, clearly shaken by my words. You don't know anything, she murmured, but the conviction in her voice had vanished. You lied to all of us, Anna. Why? I demanded, taking a step toward her. This isn't just your house, Anna. It was never just yours, Camilla added, her voice steady despite the evident emotional tremor. Anna looked from one to the other, tears beginning to stream down her cheeks. I was afraid of losing everything, she finally confessed, the truth emerging amidst sobs. When my father died, I became desperate. I thought if Camilla stayed, she would claim everything. I had nothing but this house. Camilla took a deep breath, her expression softening as she saw Anna's vulnerability. I didn't want to take anything from you, Anna. I just wanted my family. Anna's revelation opened an old wound, and it was clear that past grievances needed to be healed for both to move forward. I didn't know you felt that way, Anna. Camilla started, but the words caught in her throat. The air carried a weight of unspoken regrets and painful revelations. As Anna and Camilla confronted the fragments of their shattered past, I realized that my presence there had catalyzed more than just a trip down memory lane. It had triggered the possibility of reconciliation. Can we try to start over? Camilla offered, extending her hand in a gesture of peace. Anna, hesitant, looked at the outstretched hand, her internal struggle clear on her tear-stained face. Finally, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of years of resentment, she stepped forward and accepted Camilla's hand. The air was charged with hope and renewal as Camilla and Anna, now reconciled, timidly talked about the lost years, trying to stitch together the pieces of a relationship broken by distrust and fear. Watching them from a distance, I, Larissa, felt a deep peace, knowing my intervention had helped heal old wounds. On the drive back to the city, with Camila by my side in the car, the conversation flowed more freely than ever. "I never imagined this could happen, Larissa. Thank you for not giving up on me," Camila said, her grateful gaze reflecting in the rear-view mirror. "Sometimes, all we need is a second chance," I replied, thinking about how all our lives were intertwined by decisions that, in the past, seemed insignificant. When I arrived home, I found Robert waiting. He had closely followed the entire journey, offering support and understanding. His smile upon seeing me was the balm for any remnants of fatigue I might feel. "How was it?" he asked, helping me with the keys as we entered. "Transformative," I responded, feeling the weight of the experiences lived over the past weeks. Seeing Camila and Anna together, making peace, it made me realize how precious each opportunity for change is. Robert led me to the living room, where a small celebration was prepared. Candles lit the room, creating an atmosphere of intimacy and warmth. "Larissa, I've been thinking a lot about us," he began, his voice soft but filled with emotion. "About how you faced challenges and how it inspired me to be a better version of myself." I watched him, each word increasing the anticipation in my chest. Robert knelt down, and his hand found a small object in his pocket. "You've changed my life, Larissa. Want to make it official?" he asked, revealing a small box with a stunning ring. My breath caught, tears welling up in my eyes, not only from the gesture but from the symbolism of the moment. "Yes, I accept," I said, my voice choked with emotion. He slid the ring onto my finger, his eyes shining with promises of a future together. "I promise to stand by your side, in times of challenge and peace, just as you stood by Camila," he declared. We embraced, a hug that sealed commitments and began new chapters in our lives. Camila, having recovered and rebuilt her life through family reconciliation, was now exploring new possibilities, while Robert and I, bonded by a new tie, planned our future. This was not just a new beginning for Camila and me, it was a testament to the power of resilience, forgiveness, and love. Our lives, intertwined by circumstances, now moved forward together towards a promising future, full of possibilities and the sweet promise of better days. Our celebration, simple yet significant, was a prelude to many more moments of shared joy, marking a perfect closure to a chapter full of revelations and surprises.
So, if you're not subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button below and join our community. Thank you for your support and see you in the next videos.